good afternoon everyone. It's Stephen Hale here from the MFAA, Head of Marketing Communications, and I want to thank you for your time this afternoon. The presentation today is about Global Money Week, a guide to using the top presentation and tips on being an educator. So we're hoping today to take you through one of the presentations being the senior high school presentation, which is the most used and has the most information. There are two other versions of the presentation, one for primary schools, which is obviously not as detailed, and one for junior high school, which is up to about year 9, so we can judge from that point of view. So I'm going to take you through what to do, how to plan, what to do at the beginning of the presentation and how to run it, and then go through the actual presentation. We won't be taking questions directly as we go because last time we did that we had a flood of questions and we can't get to them all. We do intend at the end of this webinar in the next couple of days to put out a Q&A based on your questions to everybody so that you can see what people have asked and how we've responded to them to make sure that we get that. We also have various Global Money Week and marketing email addresses where you can send direct questions if you feel that we haven't covered that. So let's get into the necessary bits. I'm hoping that everyone realises that when we do Global Money Week that the focus really is on the kids. And this is an initiative that can help your business connect directly with schools, with parents, with teachers and your local community. The picture I have in front of you now is the audience that you'll be dealing with. They can be various levels of interest in education, and they can be private schools through to disadvantaged schools. So I know that it's a great opportunity for us to demonstrate that brokers are more than just order takers, as some media would have us believe, and are really interested in helping what is a really major challenge in Australian society. It's recognised by ASIC and the government that financial literacy is a major challenge. So that's one of our brokers, Mari McLeod, at her presentation, one of her many presentations. And I hope when you look at that picture and your audience that you're doing it also for the right reasons, that you are doing it with your first intent of helping an issue in Australia and delivering the knowledge that you have into the next generation of Australians, because many of them, and commentators talk about this all the time, are ill-prepared to understand money when they go into what I will now call, because I'm older, the real world. I also wanted to mention that coming up throughout March we have our SOLD events. These dates will be pushed out to an EDMs. One of the major topics we're covering on the day is we're going to have case studies from brokers doing community programs. So if you want to learn more about conducting a community program, how to connect with your community, how it can bring awareness to your website, to social media and to yourself as a broker, this is a great opportunity for you to come out. Part of the agenda also is about a concept called mindfulness, which is a rethinking of the way you approach your business to create better productivity, better outcomes, and also a better lifestyle for you under SOLD. Now, Global Money Week is a SOLD initiative, and SOLD stands for Social Responsibility Opportunities for Women, Lifestyle, Mental Health and Diversity, as in cultural diversity. It's an initiative, a broad initiative, to help our brokers understand more about themselves, their community and where they fit, to create, I guess, if you look at some of the new customers coming through, a more modern view of what they do. So those dates will come out to you. It's a great opportunity to come and hear why brokers do it and to see what the outcomes can be for yourself, your staff and for your business. All right, key factors in running a presentation. I thought before we get to the presentation I would actually clarify some things for everyone. Like, now, last year when we ran the program, and I actually ran 2 of these programs in a primary school, so I'm speaking from experience, sessions can run from either a single family in a broker office to a school class of 30 to an auditorium of hundreds. The whole idea is don't limit yourself. If you're in a regional area and can only get a small group, if you can't get a school to commit and you've got a couple of families who would be interested in getting their kids to hear about it, it's still worth doing in terms of your reputation and your brand. And even if you, as an MFAA member, are unable to get a school, it's still worth promoting on your website, and we're going to be sending out some collateral on that for you to put on your websites to say, you know, I'm an MFAA member, I'm a broker, and I support Global Money Week and financial literacy in Australia, because it's a great message to your customers and to the community. Another thing is we get asked is, can parents attend the session? Many schools will ask, particularly if you're in primary or junior high school, if the parents, and certainly the teachers will attend it, if the parents can attend at the session. And look, we absolutely recommend that. When you've got the parents on the room, many of them may in fact not be that financially literate, and you experience them as customers every day as brokers. And having them in the room does mean that often they will go on with ongoing education and commitment to this as a program with their own children. So my answer always is that the parents want to be involved, please get them in the room. We also learned a key lesson last year, particularly with high schools, that always send your presentation through to your organiser, generally the school teacher or the principal, to determine if the presentation is lacking in specific content required by the school. Where that will come into play is last year we did a high school presentation, and we found we were missing out some information on things like pay slips and superannuation, which we hadn't planned to cover. Also, if you're dealing with a private school, the income of those students can often be as high as $100 a week or more, and so you're dealing with different scenarios in terms of their income as individuals. So always send it through. It gets the school or the community group more committed, and it's a great way of double checking. And feel free to add your logo in the presentation. It's actually set up for you to do that. We do want you to profile your actual business on the slide. We don't want you to hand out cards or tout for business at any stage. The brokers who did this successfully last year, and there are hundreds of them, basically said those that got the best result for their business were the people, they basically promoted who they were, and we'll look at what that means in a minute. They had their brand up there, but they never tried any hard sell, and because they became a trusted educator, if you like, a trusted advisor, that old terminology, it allowed them to get a better relationship. And the lady who we had up on the screen before, you know, she's also the creator of our School Entrepreneurs program. Now she's got schools chasing her now to do sessions on both these programs. So keep that in mind, that that is the sort of thing we're looking for. Don't tout. Hold yourself back from that. Just make sure your brand's up there, and there's another way you can talk about yourself as well. So preparing for the day. A lot of people get presentations wrong because they don't prepare. One thing to do, and a key learning from last year, is make sure that you confirm a week out from the presentation. We have had brokers who have actually, you know, gone to schools and they've said, oh, we sent you an email cancelling it, and that's a waste of your time. Very important that we come across, obviously, as professional and confirm with the school the day and the time within a week of the presentation. I know that most of you are highly organised people, and that's probably a little bit teaching you to suck eggs, but I do urge you to do that. I think review the presentation provided by the MFAA, add in any messages or stories that reflect your style, always keeping in mind the audience. It's got any presentation to be successful in front of any group has to be you, has to be authentic, and we don't want you to be uncomfortable with the message that are delivered. So look at the speaker notes when you get the slide pack, and if you want to write in messages that you feel you can deliver, which are not a sell of your business, let's keep that in mind, then I urge you to do so to make it really your presentation and something that you own and feel comfortable with. And the big one is, and some people have difficulty doing this, conduct at least one practice run with a colleague or your partner or a partner in the business so that you're well practiced. Feedback is the key to a great presentation, and sometimes it's hard because you're uncomfortable and you're probably better in front of the audience than someone you know, but it's worth doing that run through to get your timing right, to be comfortable with your messages. Once you've done them once or twice, they pretty much roll off the tongue. So practice run, very, very important before you get there. Because if you've not done a school before, and I can assure you when you're in front of a bunch of school kids, if you have a bit of a stumble or they're not sure that you're attuned to it, they can turn off pretty quickly because they have a shorter attention span than an adult. So keep that in mind. All right, starting your presentation. You're in the room with those wonderful kids that we saw before. Firstly, thank the school and the audience for providing you the opportunity. I think that's really important that the courtesy aspect does work well, and they then start to see you as a person straight away, not someone trying to sell something, which of course we're not there to do. Introduce yourself and your business, and I recommend, if you're comfortable, provide a short statement. Now, I've written a fairly basic one there to help you, but as an example, you can say, hi, I'm Lucy from LT Finance. I've worked in finance area helping people for over 8 years. It's very much a credibility statement. It's not about what you do. You're not saying I sell mortgages, commercial finance or equipment. But what it is saying is I'm someone you can trust, I have experience. And we're more than happy for you to do that. I think it's a really important icebreaker to start the session so that they see you again as the trusted professional that you are. All right, style guide to a great presentation, particularly with schools. So rule 1 is be positive, introduce humour to keep your audience as you're telling a story. Be mindful when doing this presentation. You're taking them through a journey of things they need to know which will impact on their lives as young people. It'll be really important that they feel that you're positive and also a little bit funny. Most brokers I know have a great sense of humour. If you don't, I'm not sure this is the right thing for you as an initiative, and that's not being rude, but when you get in front of a group of kids, if you don't have a sense of humour either about yourself or the story that you're telling, it will be more difficult to do. I know I got interrupted a fair bit with a lot of weird questions by the primary school students. It almost threw me a bit, but having a sense of humour can get you back on track. Rule 2 is don't rush the timing. Your audience is an inexperienced audience, so keep pace that suits the audience. Often with Rule 2, it'd be great if you can ask the teacher, how experienced are these kids? How much do they take on information? How interested are they? Because if they're less, I guess, if they're more lowly educated, it's going to be a lot slower pace you need to take them through, and you'll probably need to get more questions. If they're more educated or intelligent, then you can move at a little better pace. So the teacher will know them back to front. So Rule 3 is a really good one and important that you get ready for. Engage with the audience. They're kids. If you do not engage with them, if you just read a presentation, this will not go well for you. Questions are the most powerful tool in any presentation, so ask the audience questions to keep them connected. Now, I've actually put a question in there which will relate to when we're in the presentation. So, for as an example, you can ask kids to put their hands up and say, how many here think that a mobile phone is an everyday need that you can't live without? And use questions to get them chatting. You've got to control it, obviously, but most teenage kids in high school is going to say they can't live without their mobile phone. In fact, most brokers tell me they can't live without it. But the fact is, when we look at the reference versus needs versus wants when it comes to the presentation, mobile phone is not essential to living. And part of the financial literacy education is getting them to understand that when you have limited funds coming into you, that necessities are more important as the first priority for you over those things that we want to have. But it's a great question. They'll have a lot of fun with it, particularly in high schools. I know in the, in the high schools when you ask this, nearly everyone's going to say, hey, I must have that. I've got a 9-year-old right now who's asking me for a mobile phone who claims that he can't be important at school without a phone. Now, I'm struggling with that, but it's certainly indicative of what they're about. But that keeps you in the real world with that audience that you've got. So let's get started on the actual presentation. As I said, happy to receive your questions. We will put out a Q&A out to you in the next couple of days answering any of those, and we'll come back to you with more specific questions as required. So here's the start of the presentation, Global Money Week. Now, Global Money Week is, you don't have to go into this, but Global Money Week is a global initiative to help the youth of the world be better prepared when it comes to money. We are looking at the Year 10 to Year 12 presentation today because that is the broader one. And we do have a spot on there for you to put your name or your logo or both. And as again we said before, we obviously encourage that. So you've gone through your formalities of introducing yourself. You've explained that you're here to do a presentation. You may in fact have to explain what financial literacy is. The simple answer to that is that financial literacy is understanding the impact that money has on their lives as they move forward through their working life. And we'll get that out to you to use, and it really is about as simple as that. Money affects everything that we do, and they're talking to somebody who's highly financially literate. So I hope everyone on the presentation today and watching it later is highly financially literate, or this is not for you, because you will get some very interesting questions from high school students. All right, needs versus wants. So this is what we talked about before. One of the key things that the financial literacy education looks at is that a lot of kids getting out of school, leaving home, perhaps getting into having a child or buying their first item together and as a couple, they're not very good at defining what's a need and what's a want. So obviously run through the top, things that you have to live on. So needs are things you can't live without: food, water, clothing, shelter. They're the obvious stuff. And talk to them about that, saying that as long as you've got a roof over their heads, and you've got electricity, you've got water, you've got clothing, you've got shelter, all of those things mean that you're in a position to live a life. And they should be priorities when your money is limited. So the other one are wants. Now, you're going to have a lot of arguments in this first slide, and as I said, many of them will tell you that a mobile phone is an absolute need. But you've got to try and talk them around on that. So examples of what wants are mobile phone, iPad, brand names, clothing, all things they'll be interested in. So again, I think it's a great opportunity to ask that question, before you get to the slide, saying, hey, who here thinks a mobile phone is absolutely a need? And it'll start that process, and although they may laugh and taunt you a bit, and you may get that, they'll be thinking, you know what, I need to consider what's important when I've got limited dollars. One of the things that came out of last year is that many students in schools, and I know there's some great programs up there, most of them didn't understand or know how to set up a bank account or why it was important. And for those of you who have come across adult clients who don't understand money, this is one of the key factors. So going through how to set up a bank account, many of them may already have one, but keep in mind that we're still not everyone in the room will. So to set up a bank account, you'll need to prove ID. So define what a savings account is for them is really important here. So you're setting up an account that's in your name where you can put money that you earn in there to start saving. And how to set one up, what they'll need. They'll be very interested in key aspects of what if I don't have a passport, what if I don't have a student ID, what is a tax file number, and they're all things that you can answer really easily. So the important one down the bottom is if you are under 18, and most of them will be, you can still set up a bank account, and you'll need a parent or guardian with you to set that up. And that starts to lay the platform, saying this is one thing you'll need to progress forward. Obviously, all of us on the call today have had bank accounts for a very long time, and I think it's important that they start to ask that. So again, this is something we didn't have in last year about opening a bank account, because the literacy educators said it's pretty much a go, but they will ask you about it, and certainly the teachers will ask about it. So focus there is birth certificate, tax file number, and parent opening. They're the main ones you'll get asked questions on. Then understanding what a key card is. A lot of kids last year in high school, many of them had direct debit cards from their parents or for their own accounts. But some of them thought, because of the branding, and as a marketer you see Visa and things on there, many of them thought they were credit cards and they could overspend on it. So once you've opened a bank account, you'll be issued with a key card. That's normal these days. Key card will have access to money in your account. So run through and talk about that. Explain that it's different to a credit card, that you can only spend the money that you have and it will not allow you to spend more than what's in there. And a key card is not a credit card. So yeah, we've got that in there. And basically that becomes also a form of ID, and that's one of the things they need to realise, that remind them that using ATMs and trading online will all require cards, and that getting this card is really only allows them to spend the money that they have. So be careful, once you've transacted it, it doesn't come back and you have no way to increase limits. So that's again, we're building up slowly to how that will work. The other one they ask a lot about is internet banking. So, what is internet banking? How does it work? What can I do on there? They are very, very internet savvy, and they're very mobile savvy, the audiences these days that you'll get to. The main thing that you want to emphasise, particularly with these audience, is internet banking is a great way to track what money you have, how much you can or cannot spend, to make sure that when you do use your card, you're using it responsibly. So it's about talking about viewing online account information, transaction histories, about payments you've made. And look, a few brokers have said to me a good message that needs to come through is that, hey, you need to track what you spent to make sure that is what you did spend, that they could be hacked, they could have someone who've used their card. It's a great way to learn the financial responsibility of checking your statements, as we used to call it on paper, I guess, but now you can go through your financial history. And as mortgage brokers, it's also something that you'll ask of them later in life when they come looking for their first property is, well, I'm going to need your statements. I need you to understand your costs and your transactions. So it's a great way to start to educate them around what we're going to want as brokers for them to come back to us on. So on using internet banking, we don't recommend brands, as you know, but when deciding on what bank to use your account, ask your friends which one works best, which one's most mobile friendly, is it easy to use. There'll be some schools that you go to, and through some of the community-based programs where they're disadvantaged kids and they won't have phones. If you're in that audience, they probably will ask you to remove this slide. But in most cases, I want to know, can I do everything on my phone? But the kids will want to choose accounts which are actually have good apps and fit their phones and transact in a really simple way. So again, these are all things I want to know about, and you can say, hey, saving using internet banking is a great way to monitor what you do, and you can get mobile-friendly versions with apps. All right, saving is one of the big fundamentals of the whole presentation, and one of the key things that come out of what ASIC say and other financial commentators is that, basically, kids don't save, and then, don't pay bills, and they end up with a poor credit record and poor credit check, which we'll get to in a minute. So saving and utilising a bank account. So it's really about talking about, be careful of things like tap and pay, make sure you know what you can spend. It's a good thing to have, but be careful it doesn't encourage overspending. And saving is sometimes the point which I emphasise here is about what you don't spend, not necessarily how you spend. And I think that's a really important thing to add in there, that all these gadgets, we're not obviously going to knock any of the banks who are members, but they're designed, a lot of these tools, to make it easier to spend the money. And that's what they're trying to do. And if they're aware of that, then they can actually talk about how it's important to monitor what you've got and what you've got. And we'll talk about budgets in a little while as well, because that's an important one they're very interested in. All right, this is called delayed gratification, if you want to know the technical term, but why save? They will ask you why. I work part-time, I get pocket money, why should I save? And particularly if you've got the high school audience, to get them to understand this need for saving, it's really important that you give them things they believe in. It's no good saying, I want you to save up for a deposit on your house that you'll need in 8 years' time, because that kind of time frame with people in high school does not work. So start to connect the concept of this delayed gratification or saving into things that they like, even if you don't. But concert tickets, new phone, tablet, computer, schoolies, we don't call it that here, but that's what we're talking about. Birthday presents, and look, it's still massive, as game cards, iTunes, and the list could go on, but you can actually add in examples you think are relevant and ask the teacher to connect it to your audience. But make it real for them. They are not people who are in the marketplace yet, they are future customers of yours, and they'll need to understand that if I save for things that I want now, I can actually learn the habit of saving. This is called habit development, and it's a vital part of financial literacy, that saving is important to get the things that you want, but once people have achieved great goals and got things they want through saving, they will continue to do it in general. And if you look at the primary school presentation, we say what happens if you save $5 pocket money each week over a year, you end up with $260, what can you buy for that? That worked really well with that audience when they saw this big chunk of money, $260, and what it can buy for them versus $5 a week that they can spend on anything. So again, it's getting it connected to your audience. One of the things kids asked a lot about last year, and we're going to bring in, is what is a budget, and how can I create a budget? And you can just do a really basic one with them on this, saying, hey, by using a budget you can see your expenses. A lot of them don't have a great line of sight to the costs of living that they have, and it's an exercise where you can actually ask across the room, saying what is something that you need to buy every week, what is something you need to buy every month from the money that you earn. They will tell you stuff that probably are more wants than needs, but if you look there, some have to buy lunch, some want to buy a movie each month, phone credits totaling $45 a week. And what you talk through them here is try and get an idea of what you need to live the life that you want to live with the money that you earn. Even at high school, they earn pretty good money, some of them. And you know, it's great to have a budget if you're trying to save for something, so that you can make sure you restrict what you save. Sorry, what you spend. My apologies. And as I said, it's a great opportunity for you to ask questions of your audience. And we've got a slide coming up which will help you ask additional questions. But I think it's a great point to do this. I know you don't do this in the primary one, but a budget is really important for them to start to understand and start to plan for the future. Imagine if you've trained kids to understand needs and wants, to look at expenses and have a budget before they get to you for their first home. You're going to have a pretty switched on customer with good financial literacy, and that's why we're doing this. Tips to stay focused on your saving goals. And this is trying to help. They're going to say, how can I do it? I'm really bad at saving. You may get asked that question. So the set and forget philosophy is, you know, a way of putting money away automatically. I know I don't have a high school student, but I have a primary school son, and one of the things we've said to him is a third of every money he gets for his Christmas or birthday gets put into his bank account, and the other 2/3 into his wallet. And he's just accepted that as normal now, which we're very lucky for, because some kids don't. So, you know, start to talk about there are a certain percentage of everything that you earn that you should just put away, and that is so that you can build up a savings bank for the bigger things that you want. And talk about how saving is a vital part of what they'll need to do down the track in achieving their savings goals. We're not at the stage yet where we talk about getting their first car or things like that, but very important they understand sometimes accrediting a portion still gives them a lifestyle, but also starts to save money for them. A great question that we get asked, and we even present in the primary school presentation, is how can I earn extra money? You know, how can I reach these saving goals? So they are wide-ranging, and high school students have got a lot more access to actually goods and things. So like doing extra chores, selling items they don't use any longer, you know, great when you've got Gumtree and eBay to get rid of things that you no longer do. Become a junior referee and umpire at your local sports club. Many of them are paid now by the club. Get a part-time job, pick up an extra shift at work, and if you're creative, do something that's artwork or handicrafts. I'm not a handicraft person, I would be terrible at that, but I think start to encourage them. Many of them already have jobs, but they'll say, look, I want to go to Bali for schoolies, is something that will come up in high school presentations, not necessarily Bali, but you know what I mean. And you know, I'm going to need $2,000, how can I do extra stuff? And that's where you can start to use your influence on what you've experienced, either as a parent or, you know, certainly someone in the community, saying there are great things you can do extra on top of what you're doing. And they start to learn about savings is also about generating income and generating extra income to hit your goals. And this is a great behavioural change for them, that they start to learn how they can do extra stuff to hit their goals. It's really good. Be careful though, I will tell you that some of them will in fact hit you up for a job, so be ready for that. Understanding your pay slip, this is something that kids requested of us last year. We didn't have much about pay slips, but what they wanted to understand is many of them didn't understand when someone offered them a job, say at $100 a week part-time, that they lost some of that money. They had to pay tax on it. Many of them were unsure that was happening, and so they said, oh, I seem to be earning a lot less for all the effort. So it's a perception thing. So it talks about pay slips, so the date, the pay period, so they start to understand what their pay slip is. We talked about gross wages versus what they pay in tax. I'm not sure the bit about penalty rates, they do still exist, but we're very basic there. And then what the net payment is, and that's a big one for them. If they're moving into work, a superannuation contribution as an example. And that's a really good one they're going to ask you lots of questions about. I think if I was a broker, many of them will start, you can talk about how pay slips are vital when it comes to getting items like things like cars, lending for cars, which is one of the first things they think about, overseas holidays, and then the most important thing, getting a property. So I think it's a really good one to run through with them, not run them through with. And then show them an example that would look like that. And when you get that, you can point out the key sections that are on there. Now, every broker is used to seeing pay slips, so what you can do is just point out various things in there they need to know. So they start to develop a strong literacy around that. Because many people don't understand or even read their pay slips. And when it comes to making financial decisions later and looking for that as a point of reference, they may be challenged with that. So I think that's a really good one to go through with them, and I'm hoping that everyone feels comfortable in doing that, because that's certainly one that you should be good at. Superannuation is another one that we weren't expected to cover last year, and a lot of the high school students were very interested in what super is, what does it do, why do I have to pay it, why is it compulsory? And although it doesn't directly always relate to what we do every day, it's a great one to educate them on. So superannuation is a way for you to save for retirement. The money that comes in from contributions made to your super are funded by your employer. So talk about, they have no idea that retirement is even on their horizon at anywhere, at any stage. And a lot of them are also going to say, hey, why do I need to pay this? I think brokers can be in a good position to say that it's a requirement of the government that it is forced savings, and it is something that will look after you in your retirement when you stop working, and that's a long way off for them. But cover it off with them so that when they see their pay slips when they get to work, or they have a perception that super is something that is going to be important to them, and it is part of the culture in this country that I don't see many changes to in terms of compulsory. All right, great time to ask them a question. So here's one where we say to students, raise your hands, and it is in the speaker notes. I know you can't see that on the screen, but ask students to raise their hand if they think they might want to own a car, a home, open a business, or go around the world holiday. Ask them to choose one of these options, and ask a few of them to explain how they think they might fund that. Will they need a loan? And why is it important to create a good savings history? So here's where we start to draw that together. We say all these things are different. People want different things, but which of these would you want, and how do you think you might fund it, and why would savings contribute to that? Get the students talking. They've got a bit of education now from you. I think it's a great one to spend a little bit more extra time on and see where they come from. I know many of them will want a car or a holiday, and probably business and house is not on their horizon immediately, but you will find people in the audience who are very attuned to the property, saying that they want to get on that property bandwagon really quickly because they're worrying about housing affordability and things such as that. So I would have a bit of fun with this. I'd ask a few more people around the room, to make sure we get a good cross-section. In asking around the room, guys and girls, make sure that we do ask a mixture of male and female, and if anyone's been quiet, not contributing, that may mean they're a little disinterested, and asking them a question can get them back engaged. So a great slide to have a little bit of fun with. So we'll go to the next slide. And this is where you can start to talk about why it's important. So by having a savings history, you will it will help you borrow money in the future, and that's what we're after. We're after improving their skills, but we all know in putting any application in that having someone who's a proven good saver is going to make it a lot easier. This will help you apply for things like credit cards, personal loans, mortgage, car loan as financial literacy, your ability to manage money. That will sink home. You've had the fun slide before. You've connected through to them on that, and now you're saying you're putting it together, saying people with a good credit history, people again with a good savings history can demonstrate the ability to get credit when they need it, and a lot of them will be interested in that. Excuse me. Explain what credit is. So credit is an agreement where the borrower obtains goods and services before payment. And look, the main ones that they'll know about, would have heard about, are mortgages, personal loans, credit cards, and also student debt. And at this point in time, you need to emphasise that credit is not free money. It has to be paid back, and there are consequences for not paying it back. I think you can use stronger words like consequences when you do these. So yeah, it's an agreement to get money and services before you've paid for them fully, and you do have to pay that back. So they need to get an understanding of that. On the next slide, we'll explain a little more. So this is the great concept of good debt versus bad debt. And I heard a statistician the other day refer to the $344 billion that people commit into mortgages in Australia each year as positive debt. So when we do that, say good debt is an investment that will grow in value or generate long-term income. So examples of good debt are the mortgage on a home, their student loans, so that they can start to see, well, they're investing in my future, they're assets that can grow, or they're giving me skills that can help me earn income. And this is a good way to start this conversation around using credit. Bad debt is usually incurred on purchases that lose their value or do not generate long-term income. So, bad debt are things like credit cards. So if you overcommit your credit card to buy a new phone, if you're taking out, a loan to buy gaming equipment, a lot of them talk about buying these very precise big gaming systems, cost a couple of $1,000s. It seems like something it's a want over a need. And if you look at the stuff above there, more needs. So a mortgage on a home in the end is a need because it's shelter. Education is a need because it's about income. And bad debt is debts that aren't really going to give them any great value from that long term. So it's a great conversation. You may ask around the room if they got any other examples of that. You've outlined the differences between the two. So, I think that's the next one. The next slide takes it to another thing, which is your credit file. So the actions you make today in terms of paying bills on time will affect your borrowing capacity in the future. Ensure that you pay your bills off in full every time when they are due. If you do not, companies can list a default on your credit file that will stay with you up to 7 years. This is the one that will shock them a bit. Most of them have no idea what a credit file is, and you're in a unique position to explain what that is. They need to understand that although it may seem like an easy mistake or a laziness at the time, it can impact their ability to get real things that they want down the track up to 7 years. And a lot of them will be a bit concerned about this and may ask you questions around why is it 7 years, what sort of things can it help, and again, you're in a unique position to answer those questions. So I would definitely spend a bit of time answering any questions or encouraging to ask questions, explaining that, when you're out in the real world, not paying your mobile phone bill can affect your credit file because you're not paying a bill and therefore they can default your credit file. And that can stop them getting the car they want or the holiday that they want down the track. And when they start to connect all of these things that we've talked about in terms of aspirational things that they want to get and things such as that, it's a great way for them to understand the importance of doing things on time. Spending. Have a bit of fun with this one. So spending, we've got to be careful that we're not saying work hard, study hard, don't spend anything, because it won't work. So if you do not reward yourself, saving and budgeting will become a chore. That's a really important thing that they learn. We're not preaching don't spend a cent, but we are saying start to think about saving, reward yourself with small items such as movie tickets or lunch with friends, and keep on target with your long-term saving goals. Because I think at this stage they might be feeling a little anxious that if they don't save everything, they'll have nothing in life further on, and that will be too hard, particularly people within school or about to leave school. the ability to discipline themselves at that level. All right, this is where you can have a bit of fun. In your notes, again, you can't see them on the screen, but you'll get a copy of this. So I would ask them what kind of shopper you are, and let's have a bit of fun because they will be feeling a little tense at this stage on some of those items. So there's a description of each of those type of shoppers. So like a bargain shopper, only buys things that are discounted or on sale. Impulse buyers, buy, unplanned decisions, buy it when they see it because it seems like the right thing. Loyalist shopper returns to the same store, knows what they're after when they walk in the door. And rational shopper is someone who's looking at practical shopping and weighs up options before purchase. Again, this is a great time to get towards the end of the presentation, let them have a bit of fun again, talking around what type of shopper they are. Again, you're going to struggle. Some of the boys may not want to answer this question. Your role in the presentation is to ensure that you ask them the question as well because they do purchase. So if you're in I live near a beachside suburb, so I would say, when you're down at Cronulla and you walk into the surf shop, are you likely to buy something because it's the latest thing? And then in that case, you're an impulse buyer because it wasn't a planned purchase. So let's talk about those behaviours and have a bit of fun with that part of the session. So again, getting towards the end of this now, spending, how you decide to make a purchase decision. Explain the different factors in influencing a purchase decision and outline these influences that usually for products that you want, not what you need. So spending decisions, price on sale, so that purchase driven. I don't like paying full price for anything, so that's a big one for me. In-store promotions, you're influenced by the marketing. Online, you see it online. People are more impulsive online to buy stuff, so if they're online and they see it at the same price in the shop, they're more likely to buy it online. It's in a catalogue. Catalogues are designed to give you a broad shopping experience. It's the latest trend and peer group pressure. So I think, if you've got the time with your audience, you can actually ask them to explain are any of these things that help them decide to buy something that they don't necessarily need, but that's something they want. And now we're re-emphasising that needs versus want concept again. So spending, about knowing your habits. Are you brand loyal? Do you buy a particular brand? Do you shop for things when they're on sale? So it's just going through and emphasising that again. It's about outlining, what sort of shopper are your spending habits, and starting to make them aware that if they are aware of what sort of shopper they are, they can actually start to develop better habits to not spending unnecessarily on needs. And that's what you're trying to emphasise there. I don't know who buys those Minions in a high school, so we might change that image, I think. But, I think that's a key one there. We talk about online in this presentation. Online shopping is a great way to find cheaper alternatives for clothing and other objects. However, there can be hidden costs. I think ask some students if any of them have had experience with online shopping. Explain that shipping and handling fees can add to the cost. I think one of the other ones that's really important with online shopping is that sometimes if it's the wrong colour, it doesn't fit or it's damaged, it's very hard to get the goods back because they were so cheap. Without incurring additional cost to yourself. So you have to be really sure. A lot of people who buy online fashion, as an example, try it on at a store and then buy it online through another venue. But just there are pitfalls to it. It's the bit trendy thing for them, but make them aware there are hidden costs in doing so. Now, this is one that a lot of high school students are unaware of and very interested in, and identity theft online. It is cool to buy online, but identity theft is a type of fraud which involves in stealing money or gaining other benefits by pretending to be someone else, and it is more likely to happen online. If you're going to buy, I saw a thing from McDonald's the other day as an example going out to students saying if you see someone offering a $30 gift voucher at McDonald's, it's a fraud, it's not real, don't send them money, don't send them your identity or your information. A lot of these scams out there, and disappointingly big brands like Facebook or even Twitter don't do anything to prevent them until they're caught. They just let them run. So keep in mind that you need to run through that. Identity theft will affect 1 in 5 people in the room. and 700,000 Australians were impacted by identity theft last year. So over $1 billion stolen generally through stealing IDs. And it's just, again, a way of saying to them, be careful what you do with your money. So tips to avoid it, I'll let you run through. That's pretty basic, you know, different passwords, regular changing, secure Wi-Fi networks. They'll know all of this language. If you're not comfortable with it, just read through it. If they ask you a difficult question in relation to any of them and you're not comfortable with any question you're not comfortable, we advise that you'll come back to the class and we will support you with answering those questions. And then you get to the end. So that's the high school presentation. As I said, there are, you'll all have access to all three presentations, the primary school, the lower high school and the high school, higher high school, if that's the right terminology, senior high school if you're American. So that's when you get to the end, just open it up to questions. See if they've got any. Many of them will have been answered along. My experience and what I hear from people who've conducted the presentation is that they don't get a lot of questions at the end. You've probably right now hit you know, that 40, 35-minute part in a high school with questions up to 50. That's about a period in a high school, and so many of them will be anxious to stop. At that point in time, the key thing to do is to ask for questions, answer a couple as they come through, thank everybody for their time, thank the teacher in particular, and if you have parents in the room, thank them for attending. Let them know that if they have any additional information or questions after the presentation, that you can answer them and send them directly through to the teacher or the principal, whoever your contact at the school is. So that's the end of our webinar today. I can't see your questions, they're offline to me at the moment, but what we'll do is we'll have a review of the questions in the next couple of days. We'll be putting out various Q&As to answer your questions. Again, the team here at the MFAA are more than happy to take individual emails from people if you feel the Q&As don't cover your questions. Or if you can't find where to get the presentations. We do have a Global Money Week resource center you can access as a member, which has all the templates and everything you need to arrange a school. I would also like to emphasise that Global Money Week doesn't have to be done just in the week of Global Money Week. It is an ongoing thing that you can do at any stage throughout the year, and we welcome any assistance we can give you to deliver those programs. We hope very soon to announce some broader national programs. We do have one with YMCA. We have a very exciting pilot going in Queensland with the Booyah program, which is with police citizens boys. I call them police citizens boys, so it's police youth clubs with the Queensland Police, the Queensland government. We do have a very big pilot running with a very big sporting organisation that we hope to announce to you, a very big nationally branded one. And there'll be a pilot happening on that, a couple of pilots, one in New South Wales, one in Queensland, and then other states as we roll out. So there's a lot more to talk about. We're happy to interact with you. Please keep an eye out for your EDMs on this, and thank you for your attendance.